Welcome to my coastal management case study presentation, Hütelmoor, Coastal Realignment and Moor Restoration. This case study is from northern Germany and my name is Gerald Schernewski. I'm head of the Coastal and Marine Management Group at the Leibniz-Institute for Baltic Sea Research, and at the same time I'm professor at Klaipeda University. Sea level rise is a major problem, major challenge for our coasts, and the global situation can be transferred largely to the Baltic Sea. And what we saw during the last about 100 years was a sea level rise of 1 to 2 millimeters. In the 90s, it became obvious that it accelerated to 3 to 4 millimeters per year, and in future, model projection suggests even up to 10 millimeters per year. So the coast is at risk. But the risk largely depends not only on sea level rise, but on storm surges. In the Baltic, a heavy storm surge is already defined by exceeding 1.5 meters above the average. This is simply due to the fact that the Baltic Sea is microtidal, with a tidal range of only 0.2 to 0.3 meters. The protection design base results from 1872. This was the most severe storm surge which provided a lot of data and serves as background. Afterwards, these high water levels of 2.8 meters were never reached again. But what we see during the last few decades is a higher abundance of heavy storm surges. Already in the past, this situation led to serious erosion, indicated by red dots here. And the picture shows northern Germany, the federal state of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. And in one area, we even see a coastal retreat of above 200 meters per century. So this causes a lot of costs. So we have annual coastal protection costs of about 15 million euros. And we have a very long coastline, 370 meters outer coast, Baltic Sea coast, and about 1,500 inner coasts, lagoon and Bodden coasts. So we need new protection strategies to deal with future climate change and the sea level rise. So we go to this area with the highest retreat, Markgrafenheide, Hütelmoor. In the south, the town Markgrafenheide, 600 inhabitants only, but above 100,000 tourist overnight stays per year, so intensively used. And the town is at risk. Therefore, protection measures took place. The groin system, wooden pile rows, were renewed at costs of 2 million euros. A beach nourishment took place. Artificial dunes were built by taking sand from offshore at costs of 5 million euros. And a dike prevented flooding from the hinterland, costs 2.6 million euros. And in the north, we have the lowland moor, the Hütelmoor, with an area of about 540 hectares. So this is how it looks from the air. On the left-hand side, the dike. In front, towards the sea, wooden groins, protective dune systems, and near the street, a protective wall. So once this scheme was finished and the town was safe, a compensation took place, a compensation measures, the Moor Restoration, Moor renaturation. Originally, the moor was already in 1961 designated as nature conservation area. But because of a demand of agricultural land during DDR time, a dewatering took place and it was used as pasture. Only with the reunification in 1990, this stopped and it was left up to a natural development again. So in 2002, in front of the area, the coastal protection stopped. So there was no renewed sand nourishment or no renewed pyros. And in 2008, the water in the moor was increased by 0.5 millimeters to restore the former moor. In the planning period, there were very simple projections how this area would develop. This is shown on the left-hand side. And the forecast said that it would end up as a Baltic lagoon, so that soon a breakthrough would take place at the spot that is indicated on the photo, and that a flooding would take place from a storm surge. But what happened in 2011 was that there was an unexpected flooding from the terrestrial side. So we had very heavy rains in July and August, about 550 millimeters. And this is 5 times more than we have commonly in summer. Result was an inundation. And this, again, increased local protest. As a compromise, the water level was slightly reduced again, and a cycling path was elevated. And during the renaturation process, the access was restricted to a certain degree, but more directed. So there was a cycling path established, there were signposts, observation towers, and information panels to make the area accessible for tourists. And from a nature restoration aspect, the objectives were largely reached. So the situation is stable, there is a natural development, and the elevated water level protects the area from flooding from the sea. So it is largely stable, and the peat is conserved. So there's no shrinking soils anymore. What developed differently was the biodiversity. So it is now very much dominated by reed, not as expected by a variety of plants and birds. And colleagues still measure a high release of methane, a climate change active gas. This is how the coastal side looks like. We clearly see strong erosion, but a permanent breakthrough, a permanent inundation after a storm surge did not take place. And the positive aspect of this erosion is that the sand is transported towards east to Graalmuritz, another larger seaside resort. And this reduces protection costs there and naturally nourishes beaches there. So we can summarize that this combined scheme was cost-effective, was quite innovative, And the aspect of realignment is really something new. If we have a look, what kind of lessons did we learn from it? So what happened during the entire planning process, especially in the cooperation with local people? So in the beginning, there were a lot of uncertainties linked to climate change. The amount of sea level rise was uncertain. And the scheme with protection and renaturation was quite complex, and this reduced the local acceptance. And this is a special thing, the low acceptance of protection measures in the Baltic, because storm surges are not that high, are not that severe compared to the North Sea. So people don't feel threatened. And between planning and implementation, there was a decade nearly in between. And this meant that local actors changed, even the political framework conditions, and this made the process more difficult. So public participation took place in the area, mainly locally. But it was difficult to find compromises, possibly because of the aged population, possibly because of the historic and cultural background of the population. And it turned out that a few activists that were against the scheme were very present in the media. They misused tourism as an argument against the scheme because they said, well, everything will be flooded and it cannot be used by tourists anymore. The tourists today see it very differently. And this minority opinion was very much made public by local media, especially the free advertisement media, who were quite happy to jump on this aspect, on this conflict. So the question is really, is public participation beneficial in such a complex, large-scale and long-term scheme? Did it really help? Or do we have to change how we are involving the public? So this remains still a major challenge. And with this, I like to thank you for your attention.